Hey, what's going on? How y'all doing out there today? This is your Uncle Steve, and we're in Uncle Steve's Lounge. Had to come in today because it has been very interesting over the last couple of days. I know if you're a Falcon fan, especially, you've heard some of the great excerpts from the new Legacy Locker Room podcast with three former Atlanta Falcons wide receivers, and more importantly, about things you haven't heard from our potential Hall of Fame wide receiver, Julio Jones. A lot of backlash, a lot of interesting comments that have been made, and from the fans, very interesting feedback. And I just want to make sure we go back into history and remember some of the things that led up to that position that Julio Jones is taking from his side. Let's talk about it for a few minutes here on a Wednesday in Uncle Steve's Lounge.
You're in Uncle Steve's Lounge. You're in Uncle Steve's Lounge. Gonna sit down, have a good time. You're in Uncle Steve's Lounge. You're in Uncle Steve's Lounge. Gonna sit down, have a good time. You're in Uncle Steve's Lounge. You're in Uncle Steve's Lounge. Gonna sit down, have a good time. You're in Uncle Steve's Lounge. You're in Uncle Steve's Lounge. Gonna sit down, have a good time. You're in Uncle Steve's Lounge. You're in Uncle Steve's Lounge. Gonna sit down, have a good time. You're in Uncle Steve's Lounge. You're in Uncle Steve's Lounge. Gonna sit down, have a good time.
What is going on, and how y'all doing today on this Wednesday, June 4th, here in Uncle Steve's Lounge? I am Uncle Steve. I am very happy to see you all and talk to you all here on this day. Normally, I wouldn't come in here probably until like the bookends of the week, but obviously, with my status change recently and might have a little bit more free time, hopefully, we'll get together a little bit more to talk about some of our favorite things, whether we're talking Falcons, Atlanta sports, or you know, how I am about entertainment. Sometimes we'll pop some of that stuff in there as well. But the polarizing thing that has been talked about here in the off season. So as people, say, why is everybody bringing all this up? Because it's the off season, and there's obviously a lot of dead time between now and September when the season starts. So these are some very interesting topics that we're talking about. And boy, oh boy, did Harry Douglas, Roddy White, and Julio Jones hit a home run with this podcast, the Legacy Locker Room podcast, which you have to get the Squad app in order to get it. I might have to give some interesting reviews for that Squad app because it took a while for me to finally get some content on it. But now that it's on, I've been able to uh, get in and look at it. And very interesting stuff. You know, those guys were together for a couple of years with the Falcons. Harry Douglas, of course, from Atlanta, and left Atlanta after I think the 2013 season, after he led the Falcons in receiving. But then, we knew we were getting Julio back from injury the next year. He signed a free agent contract with the Tennessee Titans. Roddy White, a little bit unceremoniously let go of after the 2015 season. And then Julio Jones, who is going to be the crux of this conversation today, unceremoniously traded in 2021. And my focus today was on the Julio Jones end of things. Uh, I know you all, and normally I would have a chance to get the clips, but I also want people to make sure that they support the Squad app. They seem like there are some folks that trying to get some black businesses to go through their app and things of that nature. So I definitely want people to support that. So if you want to see the clips that we're talking about, go ahead and subscribe to them, and you'll be able to see some of the stuff yourself. I got a chance to listen to the whole episode yesterday, and the Julio Jones story, which a lot of us did not get an opportunity to hear Julio's side. The last verbal side we heard from Julio was on Undisputed with Shannon Sharp and Skip Bayless, when Shannon Sharp kind of set up Julio to talk about his plans when Julio said he was out of there. And next thing we know, he was out of there. So Julio got an opportunity to tell his side of the story on the podcast, and a little bit of paraphrasing going on here with some of Julio's thoughts. But it seemed like Julio had, and if I'm reading into it correctly, it seemed like Julio had a bad taste in his mouth about not being able to communicate with Arthur Blank after he was hearing some of the things being said about him in the press and possibly whispers in the franchise, where they were, when they made the move from Dan Quinn, who, again, Julio makes it clear how much he loved Dan Quinn. But after that, when he brought in Terry Fontenot and Arthur Smith, and I remember the little, if y'all remember, we were still in the middle of the pandemic at that time, and they had the little Zoom stuff that came out. And, you know, Terry and Arthur Smith didn't commit not only to Julio Jones, but they didn't even commit to Matt Ryan at the time, if y'all remember, during that time, about what the future was going to be. And Julio's issue, which I do fundamentally understand, is that he wanted to hear from Arthur Blank to say, hey, I'm listening to these guys talking about they have to assess me after all the things I've done, and I just want to hear from Arthur Blank. And it sounds like, according to Julio Jones, he didn't get the opportunity to do that. I can only go by what one side is saying. I don't know what Arthur Blank said. So we'll have to hear that. I'm pretty sure wherever the next media scrum comes, you can bet your bottom dollar one of the guys are gonna ask about that, even though it's 4 years past. But that will be a very interesting press conference when we hear what Arthur has to say in rebuttal to the bombshells Julio Jones was bringing out. According to Julio Jones, he was not able to talk to him. According to Julio Jones, Arthur Smith reached out to him. He didn't want to talk to Julio Jones didn't want to talk to Arthur Smith. Sound like he may not have even wanted to talk to the new regime. And then next thing he knew, he was trying to find his exit strategy and see which way that was going to go. I listened to him, and let me preface all of this by saying Julio Jones is by far the best wide receiver we've ever had in franchise history. I do believe should be a first ballot Hall of Famer, even though it's kind of difficult getting these receivers in. But I do believe he deserves that. I think in his era, he was easily one of the top 2 or 3 receivers during his time period. And I really like Julio Jones. Julio Jones is my son's favorite all-time Falcon. Julio Jones has, for the most part, put his head down, hasn't said a lot in the press, really hasn't done anything publicly when he was here, publicly, that crossed the line or did anything that was controversial or stuff like that. You can just say all he did was ball out for us. All of that is documented, factual, everything like that. I agree 100% with that. But I also want to take people back down memory lane for a little bit. Because there was a time right before 2021, and a lot of fans have short memories. Because after the 2018 season, when we kind of fell on our face and went 7-9, a lot of folks were kind of saying, we signed these big time guys. We signed Matt. We signed Julio to these big contracts, and we're not getting any results. For those of you that want a quick reminder of what we did, I got it here on the screen for you with some of the stuff as far as Julio's contract is concerned. And I'm not trying to tell you he didn't deserve this. Nobody's saying what he didn't deserve. Prior to the 2015 season, he signed that huge contract. And at that time, I'm almost positive I think he was either the highest or the second highest in 2015 wide receiver in the game. Then came the summer of 2018. If we remember, there was a little bit of hubbubaloo about Julio wanting to have a little bit extra scratch. He didn't hold out, but he didn't show up for one of the first, and I'm trying to remember, was it the first training camp day? It might have been the first training camp day. And then the next thing you know, they worked with him. As you see down there, July 26th, they converted $1.5 million of his current contract and $2.9 million of his next contract into a bonus that he could get up front. And a lot of that was because you were starting to see some wide receivers getting paid, and Julio was probably like, hey, I know I'm coming up on a contract here, but I need y'all to show me some love. He wasn't publicly griping, and I give him credit on that. But it was a little bit of a small distraction. But as you see, July 26th, which is usually right before training camp, they did that for him. 1 year later, they actually made that 3 years, $66 million extension, which is peanuts now to star wide receivers. But back in 2019, that was the highest paid contract for a wide receiver. Now, just because you're getting paid all this money doesn't necessarily mean it has to be the end all be all. I'm not trying to absolutely substitute being the highest paid player doesn't necessarily mean that's the 100% basis for shut your mouth and play ball. I'm not saying that. But I am saying for a franchise that's said to not be very positive towards you, those are 3 pretty solid moves to show that we kind of believe in you. And if y'all remember too, Arthur Blank was into the Falcon for Life junk that a lot of fans didn't like, a lot of fans criticized. The same fans now that are, no, Julio's right. But we forget about that part. A lot of people forget about that. 2019, there weren't a lot of people happy about that money. Because if you remember, Matt Ryan had just signed a contract the year before, making him the highest paid quarterback. So for all the criticism that we talk about Kirk Cousins, and yes, that ends up being a bad contract. But if we go back and now look at it, you had the highest paid quarterback and the highest paid wide receiver, and you were 7-9 2 straight years. Now fast forward to the end of 2020, or pretty much the middle too. If you remember 2019, we started horribly. It was like 1-6, 1-7. And then it was the Save Dan Quinn parade. Actually, Save Dan Quinn and Thomas Dimitroff, actually. And the Falcons rallied in 2000, rallied to be 7-9. Then came 2020, and Dan Quinn, I think we went, 0-5 off the rip. And they just went on and said, get out of here, to him and Dimitroff. And so when you get rid of somebody that quickly into the season, there's going to be change. And the change came in new GM Terry Fontenot and Arthur Smith. Now, Julio has made it clear in the podcast that Dan Quinn was his guy. And I get it. I'm not dogging him for that. I actually like Dan Quinn. Dan Quinn just at the end, those 3 years screwed him up. 18, 19, and what the start of 20. So Julio still in love with the coach who let him have the free days, who let him have the extra practice day that he didn't have to go through. A lot of fans, same fans now criticizing Julio. Then, now all of a sudden, I'm hearing in 2025, well, he was wrong. Arthur Blank did him wrong. And I was like, no, Dan Quinn was probably coddling him a little bit. He was a player's coach, and that was his star. And he was looking out for him. I'll go as far to say I think he had more love for Julio than he had for Matt Ryan. Now, that's just my opinion. But once that was gone, you have a new regime coming in, and the new regime is saying, well, listen, it's a reason we're here. We're here to first try to fix this ugly salary cap situation that we have. And then to try to see, hey, listen, maybe we can get something out of Julio Jones in a trade. And maybe we can get something in Matt Ryan. If y'all remember the off season of leading into 2021, Julio wasn't the only one questionable. We were trying to figure out if Matt was going to be here. If everybody remembers that, because we were a horrible team. So I just, I understand where Julio comes from. Listen, a call would have been nice. I do agree with that with Julio. You're the owner of the team. You had the guy for 10 years. He's balled out when he hasn't been injured. He's kept his mouth shut. He's kept his head down. But again, I also say, was it really that bad, Julio? And listen, much love to HD, much love to Roddy White, much love to Julio. But you got three guys there together that may not have had the greatest ending with the Falcons. And for different reasons. I really haven't heard Harry have a bad taste in his mouth about it. And Harry probably saw the writing on the wall anyway, because at that time, you had Julio coming back from injury. Roddy White was still on the team. Tony Gonzalez, I didn't know how they were playing him that year. Remember, that was the year he was fooling us about retirement, not retirement, all that good stuff. So Harry Douglas did the best thing he could do. He signed a pretty nice little contract with the Tennessee Titans to be their wide receiver. So I don't know whether his was strife or not, because he kind of took advantage of, getting 1,000 yards and making the most of it. But I want to hear what some of y'all say, and whether this is live or whether y'all seeing this or not. I just want to ask the question, Julio or Arthur, whose side are you on? And it's hard because we haven't heard an Arthur Blank rebuttal. And you got to hear both sides of it to get a full idea of what people are talking about. But I do feel like there has to be, a little bit of fairness on both sides, just to say, come on, y'all. Somebody's got to, sift through some of this stuff. So I want to hear what y'all think. I'm getting ready to go into the chat. Don't forget, as y'all coming in, please make sure whether you're on YouTube, whether you're on Facebook, make sure y'all like the video for me. Just want to make sure we can keep this thing rolling into your algorithm and get some things started. Appreciate you. Georgia, Texas boy is in the house. What's going on? Rise in 2025. I believe you. Big John Higgins. Georgia, Texas boy said, man, Julio knew he had practice. Everybody knew that. Plus took too many rests during the game. And those are, listen, your buddies that you're sitting right there in the circle with, of course, are not going to sit there and say, nah, Julio shouldn't have got those off days. He shouldn't have done it. I mean, that's his guys. I expect his guys to look out for him. Let's take that poll amongst the 53. Not about how good Julio is, but how did they feel about that particular situation? Where a lot of them were, questioning that. John says JJ needs to sit down and enjoy retirement. He needs to move on as the Falcon, and Arthur Blank needs to move on, and let's try to get a championship here. I agree with that. Most definitely. But again, it's the off season, so we got some good stuff. Christy Lewis in the house. What's going on, Christy? Thank you for joining us here on Uncle Steve's Lounge. I appreciate you. Thank you, Big J. Yes, sir. Still trying to enjoy this. Big Harlow's in the house. What's going on, brother? And a lot of the gossip I've been hearing. Let's just say I know who not to go into battle with and who sold out the Underground Railroad. Oh, Lord. Yeah, I mean, like I said, it depends on what side you fall on. I understand it. Pamela Johnson in the house. What's going on, Pam? Good to see you. I saw you enjoying yourself on the fan trip there. I hope y'all had a great time there in Alabama doing y'all things. Some great stuff going on there. How's it going? And Christy says, happy Wednesday. Happy Wednesday to you as well. Willie Doc in the house. What's up, Willie? And yes, want to get AB side. See, that's my only thing. I want to hear Arthur Blank's side. Not, it's hard. Everything you heard today, and I know if you're automatically a Julio Jones fan, you're going to jump to that side and immediately take they did Julio wrong. They did Julio wrong. Arthur Blank did Julio wrong. Or Arthur Blank tore down that church. I heard people talking about that today. I'm just like, all it takes is one trigger. You take one trigger. Arthur Blank tore down that church. Arthur Blank pushed Michael Vick in the wheelchair. I just want to hear his side before I make a judgment. Christy said he performed his best and at the highest as a Falcon. I agree. Nothing to disagree with about that there. And that would be a shame if you went into the Hall of Fame with any other uniform except the Falcons. I mean, he really didn't do much once he left. Keely, what's going on, man? How you doing, brother? He said said, if you're going to be a Falcon for life owner, then you definitely should make time for arguably the most talented player ever drafted in the blank era. That I agree with. That's the one part of what Julio said, if it's true. And again, we have to listen to what Julio said. If we believe that, then that's kind of not cool on Arthur Blank's side. I do believe you owe him that much. Matt Bryan said they reached out to him. Now, Julio said he didn't really want to discuss it with Arthur Smith. But I do believe that, I want to hear Arthur Blank. Now, Arthur Blank also in that particular time, I'm not trying to defend him, but I'm also saying Julio threw the first shot. So I'm just trying to give some like a devil's advocate to some of the stuff. I know during that time it was a little tough. That was in between that first COVID year and things of that nature. Maybe Arthur was emotional about it. Maybe Arthur Blank was a little ticked off because he said, shoot, I just gave you a little bit of scratch for a raise, and I made you the highest paid wide receiver. And then he ended up being hurt that last year. We criticized Michael Thomas for that. About New Orleans, we got to be able to criticize our own too. How many times y'all talked about Troy Anderson? I'm not trying to say Troy Anderson is as great as Julio Jones. And then I hear everybody get all educated with it. The best ability is to be available. Just like, come on, man. Christy says, but after his injuries, he was not the same. He exhibited a lot of the same behaviors with Tennessee, the Bucks, and the Eagles. They only gave him 1-year contracts before he retired. So in other words, Christy, you're saying he became just another guy. And with the Falcons, he wasn't at that status. He was much better than another guy. And that's what we hate from our end, that he turned into that. And if we're honest with ourselves now, as much as a lot of people wanted Julio to stay, it didn't really bother me as much. Because I knew Julio was kind of going down. It's not telling you that Julio wasn't the greatest receiver. It's not telling you Julio didn't give us the great years. It's almost the same argument against Roddy White. Roddy White was talking about all the stuff with Kyle Shanahan. I hate that him and Shanahan got into all that. But is there any doubt that once we got rid of him and Shanahan was able to do what he wanted to do in 2016, we jumped that high? I'm not saying it's completely Roddy White, but I don't know, game, set, match to Shanahan on that one. Even if you love Roddy White. Has nothing to do with my feelings for Roddy. It has to do with the feeling. When we were going to making our march to the Super Bowl, nobody was talking about free Roddy. Nobody was talking about bringing Roddy back on a 1-year contract. Nobody was talking about all that. We were Super Bowling our butts. We were on a nice run at the end of the year. Sanu had kind of hypnotized the fan base. Nobody was thinking about that then. So these guys, as great as they were, they also had access to grind with the organization. And I don't even think Roddy's was with Arthur Smith. I think Roddy's was with Kyle Shanahan. Carlos says that man sealed us a Super Bowl and the front office threw it out the window. Yeah, he deserved that bread because look who's still getting paid and got a job, but sold us up the creek. Okay, it's not about him not deserving to get back because he got paid because most of that money was guaranteed money. But I also say, and if we're real with ourselves, the Julio that went to Tennessee was not very productive. I'm about to look up his numbers now. The Julio Jones, after he left us, was pretty pedestrian. If I look at his numbers, his numbers in 21, he had 31 catches for 434 yards, 1 touchdown. He had 24 catches for 299 in Tampa, 2 touchdowns. And he only caught the ball 11 times at Philly, 74 yards, 3 touchdowns. And he was relatively healthy then. So I hear you. He got paid. Wrong that they didn't get in touch with him, but I do believe, honestly, I just want to hear Arthur's part. John says at 2018, 2019, he couldn't stay on the field with a pull here, pull muscle there. Just couldn't stay on the field. I can't keep giving you raisins and you're not performing. That I think I kind of fall on that side too. And making it clear, Julio Jones is an all-time player. I'm not trying to say he didn't deserve the money he got in 2019. Not saying he didn't deserve it. That's not my point. My point is, when a team goes out of their way to make you the highest paid player at the position, there is a little bit to say, well, y'all, you can't say you didn't care about me that much. I think the disconnect is when we let go of Dan Quinn and Thomas Dimitroff, all bets were off. Because I think the new regime was saying, well, listen, y'all paying 2 of the top positions in the NFL top dollar, and we're not getting results. Next year, let Cincinnati have a losing record next year and see what the fans say. As Burrow is one of the top 3 highest paid quarterbacks, and Jamar Chase, the number one or 2. I'm not sure if him or Jefferson is making more money. And then T. Higgins is the highest paid number 2 wide receiver, making just about under $30 million a season. Let Cincinnati be 8-9 this year. And you'll hear this story all over again in a different city. Willie Don says, thanks for going back through the history of Julio Jones. The fan base was split on paying Julio that second bad contract. They were split. We were all split, Willie, because I think we were also looking at, listen, it started with Devonta Freeman. Devonta Freeman, as great of a year as he had with us, I don't think he should have been the highest paid runner. And at the time he signed that contract, he was. I know that went down really quick afterwards. But to say Devonta Freeman should have gotten that huge contract, you have to question that. I'm not saying he didn't deserve a raise as a 4th-round pick or 5th-round pick, whichever it was. But I'm saying the money they paid him at that time, ooh. And then we turned around and we made Matt the highest paid. Now, Matt, got to give Matt credit. Every time Matt had a contract come up, it was coming off a great season. Matt had a contract coming up after the 2012 run where he had 5 straight years of winning, 4 playoff appearances, and just came off a year where they were literally a couple of seconds away from getting to the Super Bowl, and he was up for his contract. 2018 going into 2019, he had come off on his last contract. He went to the Super Bowl, MVP, took his team to, again, 4 yards from making the NFC Championship the following year. And then in 2018, if y'all remember for Matt had a great statistical year in 2018. And leading into that year, he deserved that raise. And Julio falls in the same category. The years going into 2019, Julio Jones, 2017, 88 catches, 1,444 yards, 3 touchdowns. 2018, the same year Matt balled out, 113 catches, 1,677 yards, which led the league, and 8 touchdowns. That was the year he didn't catch the touchdown to the end of the year against Washington. So I'm not trying to say these guys don't deserve the money. I'm saying we got to look at everything. Henry in the house. What's going on, Henry? Okay, Julio responds to the decline after 2017. That too, I think. There's no thinking about it. They were. You're absolutely correct. Got a super chat in the house. Appreciate y'all, brother Willie Doc in the house. He said in breakups, both sides have some culpability. JJ could have gotten ahead of this with the fans 5 years ago. We were left to think the worst. Thank you, brother Willie Doc in the house. And we appreciate that super chat here in Uncle Steve's Lounge. Uncle Steve Lounge. Uncle Steve's Lounge, you know I just saw a documentary with Mint Condition. Not a documentary, but an old unsung on that. Mint Condition, man. Those Stokely and fellas. They were awesome. Thank you, Willie Doc. I appreciate you, man. Appreciate the super chat here in Uncle Steve's Lounge. Again, as y'all coming in, make sure you hit that like button for me. If you don't do anything else, whether you're on Facebook or on YouTube, and if you're on YouTube, make sure you subscribe to us. I appreciate that. That helps us get this thing rolling. David Starks in the house. Have enough respect for him to at least have a conversation, but it still blanks team at the end of the day. I actually believe in that part where you if there's any truth that Arthur Blank was either ghosting Julio Jones and didn't, try to talk to him, that's ridiculous. For what he did for the franchise, you at least owe him that. You do. You do. Keely said, I'm Team Julio. The contract renegotiations didn't bother me because he consistently delivered on the field. He never cheated the game. Play good, pay good. I do believe Julio was in decline, but more than worthy of being told that face to face. And that's fine. And that's fine. I don't want y'all to tell me yet, just like Keely just did. I need y'all to tell me whether you're Team Julio or Team Arthur on this, just like he did right there. That's what I want to hear. As well as your comments. We could talk about anything, but I do want to hear what side are you on in this right now. I understand the reason he said he's absolutely right. Having that conversation is probably paramount, and that's something that I believe should have happened. Truly, if Arthur Blank did not speak to Julio Jones or his people, shame on him. Because if you were getting ready to make a move like that, I would understand why Julio doesn't want anything to do with you. But at the same time, I'm also saying let's not pretend like there was a new regime coming in and they were about to make some changes. So I don't want to, I'm playing straddling the line because I really would love to hear Arthur Blank's rebuttal to that, even though I doubt if it happens. Pamela, I forgot Pamela's in here too. I want to make sure I give a shout out to her and the ladies that do the show with her. And I love the fact that the ladies getting a chance to have their opportunity. I know Miss Maggie is leading that crew over there, and they do a great job. So y'all make sure y'all check her out. And the ladies doing their thing over there. I know Miss Pam is always part of that thing over there. So y'all make sure y'all give them a shout out on that particular platform there. Brother Dez Shabazz is in the house. What's up? I'm kind of in that boat. The great thing to add to that, Brother Dez, is did we truly lose anything judging on what we see from the numbers afterwards? Now, we know Matt Ryan would have probably thrown a lot more to him if he was here. But I'm looking at the production. I'm almost wondering, a lot of teams, I mean, this was still Julio Jones when he got traded to Tennessee. And you trying to tell me in the next 3 years he only got 66 catches in 3 seasons? I don't know. I think it might have been time. I think it's another case of the Falcons making the move right about that time. There has rarely been a lot of players, once they leave the Falcons, they go on to greener pastures. I'm not telling you it's everybody, but it's not a lot. Roddy never played again. Harry Douglas never put up the numbers that he put up after that last year before free agency. And this is not an indictment on them. It's just the truth. I heard Roddy saying that they put something in place for him to possibly get traded to the Ravens. I bet you now he probably wish he had made that move. But, Henry says, I think Julio's skill was slowly declining after 2000. I think I read that already. Rusty Moore in the house. What's going on, Russ? He was telling other teams Julio said he wouldn't practice or something. Smith was a D-bag. I'll take Julio's side. Yeah, I mean, again, that part is what Julio is saying. That's the kind of stuff I can't substantiate. So again, I hear you. Makes sense if you want to go on that side for that. But that part I have to hear. I don't disagree with the Arthur Smith thing. T. Terry in the house. What's going on? Christie said on July 29, 2021, Blank expressed his disappointment in the breakdown with Julio. That article, what Blank said, and Julio's desire to leave is still on the Falcons website. Yeah, I saw that. And I remember when he came back with that. And remember, that was right after the Shannon Sharp stuff. So Arthur Blank was a little disappointed. But again, that gray area between the time they hired Terry Fontenot and Arthur up into the interview that you're talking about, Christy, which I did read on AJC, is on AJC as well, that they had the excerpts of that. There's still some gray area between what really happened. Julio is saying he didn't get any communication. But judging by what Arthur Blank says, it almost sounded like Arthur Blank was saying, you know what, Julio, you got to talk to Terry. You got to talk to Arthur because they're running the team now. And again, you're talking about Julio Jones, who already had his favorite coach fired and probably was feeling a little, like, hey, don't I get a call from the owner? So I get that. That's the part I have not denied. I do believe if Arthur Blank didn't talk to him, shame on Arthur. But I also say, from Julio's standpoint, there's another part of me where I'm kind of like, okay. I really would like to see that. T. Terry said, Julio is acting like a little diva. Mr. Blank running the NFL business. He can't talk to everyone. I can understand that too. And that might have been a time where Arthur Blank was like, yeah, man, talk to the new regime. They trying to talk to you. They're trying to talk to you. Weston Moore said, T. Terry, Julio, and everybody, and everyone, AB said he wanted him to be a Falcon for life. He definitely should have made time to talk to him. While I agree with the latter part that he should have talked to him, remember, we got to keep, Arthur Blank that year, and if y'all remember, they questioned Arthur Blank when it was Arthur Blank and Rich McKay when they were on, and they were on before they made the hires, and they kept asking Arthur Blank about the Falcon for life thing. And Arthur Blank kind of did a mea culpa on that, where he was saying, yeah, well, we got to look at everything. Maybe I'm not remembering word for word, but he was kind of going back like, yeah, I might have screwed the pooch on that one. And we were all criticizing him for that. Everybody was criticizing him for that. And so when he now goes through he's going through I didn't talk to him. Maybe it's a reason he didn't. Maybe he wanted to, instead of hollering out Falcon for life and the guy saying, okay, that means I'm going to get paid. Arthur is saying, let me be quiet and let my money people let my general manager do the talking. And that wasn't very popular to Julio, who had been used to, for lack of better terms, getting his way. Christie says also from the Blank interview, Julio made it clear that he had certain aspirations and wanted to do it someplace else. Blank said, that was not our original intent. And that goes to, and that's actually a really good statement, because that's probably what's not said in that statement. Christie has said, I talked to Julio. I think that may be the part where Julio may have said, and Julio did say he started talking to his agent previously before that. But Julio said on the thing, he didn't want to talk to Arthur Smith. Didn't say Terry Fontenot's name, but he said he didn't want to talk to Arthur Smith about anything. He wanted to talk to Arthur Blank. Wrong Arthur. I want to talk to Arthur Blank, not Arthur Smith. You just got here. But what's not said in that quote right there, Christy, is whether if he would have said, I spoke to Julio and he told me, but the statement might be validating what Julio is saying, that he didn't speak. That Julio made it clear that he had certain aspirations and wanted to do it someplace else. Maybe he made those aspirations clear to somebody else other than Arthur Blank, because according to Julio, he never talked to him. Well, Doc says, yeah, I love some condition, man. Again, I think I tell everybody that when I first came back from Germany, that was the first song I heard when I landed. Pretty Brown Eyes. That was a really good song back then. Atlanta Bird Gang in the house. That's my brother. I make sure y'all check out Atlanta Bird Gang. Always doing their thing. He's been putting out some really good shorts on the Legacy Locker Room, and give a shout out to Legacy Locker Room, man, and Harry Douglas, Julio Jones, and Roddy White for giving us some good off-season stuff to talk about. I think this has probably been able to be made into content for everybody, so everybody gets to eat a little bit, if you know what I mean. So y'all make sure y'all check out Atlanta Bird Gang on YouTube, and give my brother Tidy a sub and do his thing. He said, probably an unpopular point of view over here. I don't think Blank should reply. Blank gave us his side multiple times a few years ago. Julio is technically replying to him after years of being mute about it. I kind of agree with that. He doesn't have to say anything. Julio Jones hadn't been on this team in 3-4 years. I think what people are emotionally saying, no, and Harry Douglas tried to kind of break the ice during that thing and said, what would it take for you guys to kind of get it together? And Julio, of course, was playing the folded arms. Nothing. I don't want to do anything. So I say Julio is already in his feels. Will that change later? Maybe. But for right now, he's still in his feelings. He just officially retired. So maybe after a couple of years, it will. I was talking to somebody. I'm trying to think who was I talking to online on social media when we were talking about, I think I put a post up in Facebook where I was saying, don't hold your breath on that Ring of Honor thing. And they were like, well, they'll still put him in the Ring of Honor even if he's not coming. No, that would be worse. You can't put him in the Ring of Honor if he's not going to be. I mean, you can put him in the Ring of Honor and he doesn't show up, but that would look kind of eggy on the face to me. But yeah, I'm kind of okay with Blank not saying anything, but you know it's coming, Tidy. As soon as they have that first, you know, they usually talk to the owner right during training camp or something like that. So that, you know, the reporter's gonna run up there before maybe even before they ask about the current team. They're gonna run up there and ask about that. And you can understand it's a polarizing thing. That's your arguably one of your best athletes in the franchise history not getting along with your team. Willie Doc says, I was the fan that wanted Julio to get the second bad contract. With that said, I bet it didn't play out like Julio said. Team Arthur for me. I hear you. Henry says, I'm Team Arthur. McKay could have influenced his decision about Julio during the 2018 and 19 season. I hear you. Yep. Willie Dow said, I can imagine the scenario where Julio wanted to talk to Arthur Blank. Arthur Blank says talk to Fontenot first, then come holler. Then Julio said, nah, I ain't doing that. I don't know that happened. Now, I kind of agree that that could have happened. The part where you say Arthur Blank said talk to Fontenot first and then come holler, Julio said, kind of paraphrasing you, well, hold on. I've been an all-pro guy for you for a few years. You're one of your best players on the team in franchise history. I can't get a 10-minute talk with my owner. So I understand if that happened, but I bet you that's probably what Arthur Blank did. Arthur Blank probably said, yeah, I ain't gonna talk to you. Christy says, y'all need to go back and do your research. I was a Julio fan. Didn't like how he left the team. Who would not be in their feelings with a new stepdaddy when you were your daddy's favorite? Absolutely. Let me give you a hand clap on that. Man, you kind of hit hard on that one. And it makes sense. When Dan Quinn was in the place, and if some of us will go back and look in the mirror, because I know I used to see a lot of people, Julio ain't even practicing. Julio, everybody else is coming out on Wednesday and Thursday. Julio come through the walkthrough on Friday. And I'm not saying he wasn't hurt some of those times too. I'm not trying to say sometimes he needed to be, but at the same time, star player or no star player, if you're going out there to all those practices and probably one of those players that would get fined if you don't go to practice, you would look over there and say, well, dang, Dan Quinn letting him have his way. So, Christy, I'll be willing to bet you when Dan Quinn got fired and Julio probably said, oh, jump, things about to change now. Because Danny Quinn is not here to give me my way. And again, I'm not trying to tell you that came out of Julio's mouth, but as we were looking at it, and keeping clear, I'm not a pro athlete. I'm not an NFL player. So if he's hurt and he needed the rest, cool. They even made a joke about, the vet days and things like that on the podcast. So they know it's true. Some of that stuff happens. So, that's fair enough. Really, 10-9. Christy says, how many times does every veteran player demand to speak to the owner and skip all over their bosses leading to the head honcho? I'm just trying to tell you right now, as somebody at the post office who just retired, I was not able to have a meeting with the postmaster general. Never. And because of that, there are a lot of things that I never got a straight answer to. I know, folks, it's different. I'm not trying to tell you I get you. But it is clear to me that at that time, they might not have wanted to talk to Julio. Maybe Arthur Blank was in his feelings. Arthur Blank just scrapped up a little money in 2018 for him. Like I say, a lot of people forget that part. Scrapped up a little money, made him the highest paid receiver in 2019. And then the next thing you know, I'm getting, I don't know. Arthur Blank's getting the bad end of the stick. And again, I don't want to paint this like I'm 100% Arthur Blank. I'm painting this like, can we see exactly what happened first? I see some people, it's almost like he's been tried and no evidence has been brought out. You only had one person testify, and Arthur Blank is guilty. I just say let both sides be heard. Really 10-9 to say Julio definitely in his feelings. And again, I want to make that and trying to straighten it out again. I think Arthur Blank should have spoke to Julio. Aside of that, I do feel like we need to hear Arthur Blank's side before we go all the way there. My brother King Richie in the house. What's going on, King? He said, my only problem is how you have a conversation with Kurt, but not Julio, even though I feel that was more McKay than Blank. Well, I'll kind of break it down a little bit more. I'll say when the Kirk Cousins thing happened, there hadn't been any changes. Terry Fontenot was the same general manager that signed him to the big contract. Terry Fontenot's still here. The year of transition, I think Arthur Blank got caught up in his own Falcon for life. Falcon for life. He told Grady he was going to be a Falcon for life. He told Julio he was going to be a Falcon for life. He told Matt he was going to be a Falcon for life. And maybe the next regime came up and said, Arthur, you might need to stop saying that. Even the fans were getting tired of it. And at that point, maybe he went back and said, you know what? Y'all might be right. Maybe I do need to stop saying that. Because he was kind of putting himself out there. Because if you tell me I'm going to be something for life, that means automatically you're going to pay me probably top 5 for the position. That's what that tells me. So in my opinion, I think the difference is, King, you had the same organization. Kirk Cousins requested that meeting with Arthur Blank privately. And I think because you still had all the same characters there, you had the Greg Beatles, you had the Terry Fontenot, all there, it was probably easier for him to have that conversation then. Arthur Blank was trying his best to say, hey, let the guys who have that job do their job. Because I'm sticking my nose in everything. Remember how we kept hearing about the contract negotiation? And we still hear it now. They do the negotiations, and then Arthur Blank swoops in, have dinner, and then next thing, the contract gets done. I'm not saying that he doesn't still do that to a certain extent, but I also think when you're talking about renegotiation and you're talking about future transactions, let your other guys do their stuff first. And I'll be quite honest with you, we're talking about a quarterback too, as opposed to a wide receiver. This is a situation where the Falcons probably took that because they were saying, okay, Kurt, if you're really serious about moving on and going to the next team, help us out and let's renegotiate this contract so we can slip some of this guaranteed money down. Let's see if we can you can help me out. Christy says, I still have Jet Jones memorabilia and loved him as a player, but still he jilted us with the Titans letterhead goodbye letter and pics of him grinning on the Titans jet. See, Christy, I'm kind of in your boat. I can still, because I still am a firm believer in I'm a team guy before a player guy, unless it's Felipe Franks. And I can still control my fandom, even with the greats. When Matt Ryan left, it was time to leave. I appreciate you, but it was time to leave. When Julio left, thank God, because Julio would have been making $20 million and giving you that production. And guess what, fans? Y'all would have been tripping. And you know it. King says, I think both sides not telling the full truth about it. I'm kind of thinking that too. T. Terry said, Mr. Blank is a godfather. Julio Jones, no, you have to use your chain of command just like the military work. T. Terry, I'm a huge chain of command guy too. I really am. And even if I am a chain of command guy, I know it's a little different in the private sector, and more importantly, because this is kind of a little bit of a specialized gig, I still think Arthur Blank should have at least said something to him. But I 100% agree with your philosophy about the chain of command. Because he basically said when he talked to Arthur Smith, he said, I don't want to talk to Arthur Smith. I want to talk to Arthur Blank. Well, Arthur Smith is kind of your coach now. He's the head coach. He's basically the CEO of the team. So you do need to talk to him. But when you tell him you don't want to talk to him, you want to talk to Arthur Blank, then, if I'm Arthur Smith, I'm kind of like, oh, okay, well, I ain't worked with you before, so let's ship you out so I don't have to work with you. Toddy says, I'm pretty sure the Kirk Cousins meeting was held Zoom remotely. I say this based on what Blank said about the meeting. Yeah, it probably was. Yeah. I don't think they went to Ruth's Chris State and went up there and had a big to do about it. I don't think that was the case. Brian says there are 3 sides to the story: party side, party 1 side, party 2 side, and the truth somewhere in the middle. Amen to that. Amen to that. King says, but Kurt broke the chain of command and nobody said nothing. But again, King, we got to be for real, man. There's a difference between a wide receiver and a quarterback. And again, we can't make those two situations they're not the same. Julio Jones was a player who was who himself said, heard stuff, heard rumors. He heard the press conference of Terry and Arthur saying, we're going to reassess as basically new housekeepers of the franchise, as opposed to Kirk Cousins' situation where Kirk was benched and the Falcons needed that conversation. See, quite honestly, they probably didn't even need that conversation with Julio Jones at that time. You needed that conversation with Kirk because you need Kirk to make a deal with you. You need Kirk to work with you. And that meeting couldn't have gone that bad if he showed up at a couple of the earlier camp stuff, if he showed up to the building. But it's a different situation to me. Yeah, like Tidy said, if Julio wanted the face-to-face, Kirk wanted the Zoom. And again, face-to-face at that time, again, if y'all remember, that was the first off-season COVID. That was the first end of the season stuff into COVID. And when I say end of the season just ended. We would still had a little bit of stuff. We were still Zoom crazy at that time. Maybe Julio didn't want to. Maybe Arthur Blank didn't want to have a face-to-face. But you know what? Again, he owed him at least communication. He's old. I agree, and I'll stand on that Julio was old conversation. But at the end of the day, it's Arthur Blank's team. It's up to him how he wants to do that. So I really, just bringing it full circle, I do feel like you can kind of sympathize a little bit with Julio, because when we have the list and everybody who's their favorite and who's one of the best in the franchise, Julio Jones always is in the conversation if he's not said to be the best. But I also say Arthur Blank may have learned some lessons. Arthur Blank has not been as vocal since these guys took over. If y'all think about it, Arthur Blank he wasn't Jerry Jones, but Arthur Blank was very out front in previous GM regimes. In the Rich McKay regime, he's out there pushing Mike Vick. He was out there having his own press conferences. He was out there doing all that stuff. Ever since Terry came in, you see Arthur Blank at the beginning of the year, You see Arthur Blank, you're going to see him probably at the beginning of training camp, and then that's going to be it. You don't even see Arthur Blank sits in the presser. A lot of those pressers that y'all see with Raheem and everything, Arthur Blank is in a lot of those. Arthur Blank sits in on a lot of those press conferences. But he has taken a huge step back since Terry Fontenot has come into play. He's put the focus on Terry. Y'all remember last year when they had the first meeting and everybody thought Terry was fired because he wasn't at the first press conference after the debacle of the end of the year. But you know, King says he said they didn't call him till after they traded him. Now that's crazy. Again, Arthur and Julio verified. Arthur Smith tried to reach out to him. He said he didn't want to talk to Arthur Smith. And whether Julio wanted to talk to Arthur Blank or not, as your new head coach, there should be some respect to him too. But I still think if you listen to how he kind of was blowing up Dan Quinn is the greatest. Dan Quinn is that. We lost for Dan Quinn. We got Dan Quinn fired. He went to Dallas and he was a great coach. He went to Washington on 1 year under a phenomenal quarterback, and you see what he's doing over there. So he kind of sounded like if you get a chance to listen to that podcast, if you can get the squad out to act right, if you can do that, Julio sounded like it. This is Steve talking. This is not Julio talking. He sounds like somebody that I didn't want Dan Quinn to leave. Y'all got rid of him mid-season. Y'all gave me too much of the 2020 season to stew about it. He was already hurt some of those games. Y'all gave me all them games to sit down and stew about it. You're bringing in two guys, and Julio thought he was going to get a special meeting with those guys. And Arthur Blank even said on the press conference they did at the Zoom once they hired Terry and Arthur, he said he's going to let them evaluate and assess the same stuff Julio said. And why would you be mad at that, Falcon fans? We just went through 3 of the most miserable years coming off the Super Bowl where everybody was complaining. And now we're supposed to say, well, we were all good, but keep Julio. We were all good, but keep Matt. And those are the cornerstones of the 3 years that you were losing. And quite honestly, a big part of, they can put up some stats. But if it's not coming out on the wins and losses side, what are we doing? The Matt Ryan, Julio Jones love affair with the fans died long before 2021. And if y'all remember, if you really break it down, there were a lot of people in 2021 wanted Matt Ryan off the team and move on to one of the quarterbacks that got drafted in the first round that year. Thank goodness we didn't. But it's always funny to me to go back and look at what people say now. King Richie says, I'm still on Blank's side because this is a business. Oh, okay. T. Terry says, Mr. Blank is letting Josh Bank do a lot more of the business to take over for the Godfather. If it's don't be shocked. Listen, you got to have a succession say that right, plan in place. And you see, when I saw Josh answering those, the last 2 draft picks, I think he did Bowman. Did he do Bowman and the little offensive lineman? Or did he just do the offensive lineman? I think he did both of them. So when you see him doing that, that's writing on the wall that, he's probably going to be the next guy. I don't think he was just letting his kid play on the phone. I think he was absolutely grooming him. But it's very, again, fascinating stuff. If you haven't had an opportunity, again, I tell you and I urge you to go to Harry Douglas's Instagram and get the link. There's actually a separate link for Apple phones and a separate link for Androids where you can download the Squad app. I have no idea why it took me a while. I did the same exact stuff for like 5 straight days, and then on the sixth day, it just went through. So maybe there was something going on. But either way, download that. Both episodes, so at least the 2 so far, have been riveting. You hear some really good stuff about the past. The guys talking about the playoff experiences and things of that nature. So if you're a Falcon fan, just to kind of get a background on what was going on with those teams at the time, it's really good. The Roddy White thing, I'm still, I must admit, the Roddy White brouhaha with Kyle Shanahan is going to be hard for me to totally ingratiate myself to saying, yeah, they did Roddy wrong. Because if the next year when they got Sanu and they brought in Gabriel, let's not pretend like they were hot names out there. When they brought in those guys to replace to replace Roddy's production, y'all saw the results. So as much as I love some Roddy White, it might have been time. And remember, Roddy didn't play another down after that. So I don't know where to go with that one. Love me some Roddy, but the results kind of happened like they did. Danny Johnson in the house. What's going on, Danny? He said about how it was handled with the Shannon call, but now hearing Julio's perspective, AB could have at least had a conversation with Julio after all that he and Matt gave to the franchise. Again, and I know you probably just joining us, that's 100% agree with you that Arthur Blank should have had at least a call, a Zoom, or something like that. And you know what I think it might have been too, Danny? Probably the part that you were talking about, what Julio and Matt did. If you just talk about 16 and 17 together, and actually they had a really good 18, but the whole defense got hurt that year, if y'all remember. Yes, those guys were an integral part of a dynamic, special time with the Atlanta Falcons. But as most people find out, even the Tom Brady's of the world, teams will eventually move on. And I think that's what happened with us. The difference with the Atlanta fans is, as you hear me sometimes, I wax poetic about almost getting there. There are teams that have quarterbacks that have gotten there. See Eli Manning, see Peyton Manning with the Colts, see guys like that where they're saying, hey, appreciate you, but it's time to move on. I think it was hard for Arthur Blank to move on from those guys. I think it was hard for him to move on from Julio Jones first. Maybe that's why and again, this is me trying to reach into the psyche of Arthur Blank about having a conversation. And then with the Matt Ryan thing, which he did have a conversation, and I have to be honest, y'all, it's a difference between wide receiver and quarterback. There he is. Sorry, Julio. Say what you want to say. There's a difference. And for those talking about the Kirk Cousins difference, there's a difference. There is a reason why the quarterback is the highest paid player in the league. So I say all that to say maybe Arthur Blank had an opportunity to talk to him, but I really do feel like maybe he had a hard time saying goodbye, or maybe he had a hard time looking in the mirror saying, dang, y'all, I was screwed up with this Falcon for life thing. I put my foot in my mouth and I probably shouldn't say much. And that's probably why you only see Arthur Blank once or twice a year now, as opposed to in the past, he would make several appearances. Well, I know he would be at the combine and stuff too in the draft, so maybe that's it too. John Brooks in the house. What's going on, John? Danny says, I agree with us moving on. It was time, but he didn't have to give the complete cold shoulder. Yeah, again, no disagreement with that. And maybe he has a hard time with goodbyes. I don't know. Maybe that's what it is, Danny. I hope. I don't know. Terry says, Uncle Steve, did Matt Ryan question his trade? He just went about. Uncle Steve, did Matt Ryan question his trade? He just went on about history day. Or maybe his day. Yeah, I mean, Matt had come back and said he was ticked in the moment. Of course he was. Anytime somebody, let me tell you something. Anytime somebody comes up and tells you, yeah, we can't use you anymore. Yeah, we can't. We don't need you anymore. I'm not expecting anybody to jump up and down about that revelation. Matt Ryan probably we let go of him a year too late. We may have should have started looking for trade options the same time with the Julio deal. We may be 1 year quicker into our rebuild, which it really was. It really was kind of a rebuild. We don't want to admit it, but it really was a rebuild. And maybe we should have made those decisions before that. Matt Ryan, again, franchise great. But I thought Matt Ryan was done after 19. As great as he was in 18, and he had a great year, I think we had an opportunity to move on. And Julio, same thing. I don't think we should have put all that money in Julio. I could see us making maybe a 1 year deal, but Julio got most of that, and most of that was guaranteed. I want to make sure what was his guarantee on that. Let me see how much guaranteed money he got on that deal for Julio. Let me see. They're not. Hold on. I can't see how much he's got for his guarantee, but I know he got a lot. John Brooks says, I think Arthur and Jones were both in the wrong. And it could be. And again, in the wrong or maybe just different philosophies. I disagree with the method. If I was Arthur Blank, I would have found a way to contact him just to say, listen, this is not an easy call, Julio. I'm just, but what we don't know either is maybe how Julio Jones approached the situation. He's given us the nice, cool answer. Did he cuss out Arthur Smith when he tried to reach out to him? Did he make a big stink about that? So again, we're hearing one side. And Arthur Blank probably will take a big no comment on it. But that was probably ugly. King said, yeah, but Ryan's wife was pissed by. Oh yeah. Sarah was really ticked off. Tidy, I appreciate you, brother. Tidy, the best off-camera producer in Atlanta podcasting. He said he had $64 million guaranteed at signing. So again, y'all, remember that was $64 million, and at that time, $22 million for a wide receiver was like, what? On the annual basis. So out of that $66 million, 64 was guaranteed. That's crazy. And probably 64 because they took a little chunk. Because remember, he kind of got a little bit of a advance the year before. That's crazy work. And I'm not saying go get your money. I'm not saying don't go get your money. But I am just I don't know. I don't know what he wanted. I don't know what Julio want. Maybe just that phone call. And maybe things could have been better. But I think Arthur Blank might have been trying to do his best hands off going into that regime change. Maybe he felt like, let me let the GM be the GM. Let me let the head coach be the head coach. Something he probably didn't do as much during the early part of his ownership. There's really not going to be a right answer for it. And for those of us waiting for part 2 with Arthur Blank, you're probably not going to get as much as you think you are. But I just think this is, again, shout out to Harry Douglas, Roddy White, and Julio Jones for giving us some off-season stuff to talk about and to bring up. For us fans, we only, you can only go by what you think somebody says. And when you hear it from the horse's mouth, we heard it from Julio. We heard information from Roddy about him and Harry about him. That's part of the story. It's still not the whole story. So I was just coming on to pretty much say, just before we jump to the conclusion that what Julio said was gospel, let's just take a deep breath and realize that there is another side of the story. And also realize when people hear, oh, they didn't treat Julio right. Again, for those who want to debate that, I'll put it up to those of you who didn't catch the beginning of this. I'm trying to get to it. One more. For those who didn't want to, the Julio Jones thing, put it up here real quick. What Tidy was talking about. That last contract extension. Take this off so y'all can see it. That last contract extension. So like Tidy was telling us, 3 years, $66 million. Guaranteed money at signing, $64 million. And the only reason, don't get it twisted, he got that $2 million. The $2 million that's unaccounted for, he got that in 2018 because that was the money. If y'all remember, that was the money that he had asked for ahead of time. So again, I'm not trying to convince you that all money should make all the difference, but it would make you a little happy. Carlos said all this drama with us better yield some good results. Well, again, this is good fodder for this is great off-season stuff. And who knows? This could be a great distraction. This podcast could be a great distraction to let the Atlanta Falcons do their stuff. If you know how many times right now that Raheem Morris and company are so tired of hearing, they don't want to hear nothing about Kirk Cousins no more. They don't want to hear anything about Kyle Pitts. If they can, if according to them, hey, if Roddy and Harry and Julio want to come on every week and distract the fan base and let them do their thing, I'm pretty sure they're like, yeah, man, go ahead. Go ahead and do that thing. Tidy said it was essentially a fully guaranteed contract for a wide receiver over 30 years. Almost unheard of at the time. Highest paid wide receiver at that time of all time on an annual basis. Highest guaranteed money at that time. So, and as Tidy said, over 30 years old. And we knew he was broke as far as physically. We knew he was hurting. And they still gave him that money. So, y'all take that for what it is. Y'all take that for what it is. I just feel like more power to Julio for sharing his story. Good for him. But I just caution to just let people know, hey, that there's another side to this too. Terry said Julio Jones needs to get the blank family good side. Money runs out, and when it gets to be part of a powerful family like the Blanks family, you need to be kind. Look at Michael Vick still hanging around, and remember, you know, huge, huge difference there. I just want you're not wrong in the trying to keep relations. Huge difference that Mike Vick messed up and acknowledged he messed up. It was only the fan base that was ticked off at Arthur Blank for all that stuff. Michael Vick never came out when he got arrested, after he got out of jail. Nothing like Michael Vick never, ever, ever, ever said Arthur Blank turned his back on me. Never. And if you find it, show it to me. Never said that. Self-inflicted wounds. And so, little bit different because Mike did that to himself and kept at least a good enough relationship with Arthur Blank that now I'm telling you, in the next year or so, you're gonna see Mike Vick get into that ring of honor. I'm telling you, it's coming. Chris said, Uncle Steve, I'm on the side of all the players enter 2025. That makes me feel. And it's going to be exciting. Again, went up there last Friday, had the opportunity to see a lot of the players. I am so excited about 2025. Again, I'm telling y'all, the Michael Penix thing to me is going to be fascinating. I'm not suggesting he's going 17-0, but I am really excited to see that level of talent on a practice field. I don't think I've seen that before. I've been up to back when they had Swanee back in the day when they used to do the practices up there. I've been to Flowery Branch during the Matt Ryan era, during the Chris Chandler era. The Mike Vick era was kind of interesting because, again, Mike had an arm, but you didn't see a lot of pocket stuff from Mike. This guy is really, really awesome, and I really think we're gonna get the dividends paid for us from Michael Penix. T Walker in the house. What's going on, T? He said, hey, catching the end of the live, but caught the replays. Great show the other night with Big Low. No football. Got me watching hockey. PS is actually good. Football on skates. Let me tell y'all something. I was telling my son Tyler, who is my sports bounce off, and he's a little bit more introverted about a lot of things, but his sports knowledge is much better than his dad's when it comes to everything overall. When do y'all realize so playing into what T Walker is saying about the hockey playoffs, when the hockey and basketball playoffs are over in about another week and a half, you're going to have, unless you're a baseball fan, you're going to have a month and a half of baseball, auto racing, and WNBA. And no slight to either one of those, but it ain't football. I mean, I'm going to be happy to see that first high school game in about a couple of months. But we go through this lull every year after the NBA Finals and the NHL Stanley Cup, where there's just this little boring part that we all have to go through, whether you're a Falcon fan, a football fan, or whatever. And obviously, I'm a much bigger football fan than anything else. But it's just so difficult to go through that time. I definitely want to give you a thank you, Walker. Yeah, me and Bigelow had an opportunity. Bigelow Country Sports. Y'all make sure y'all check him out. We've had a chance to tag up on a couple of We went to the practice up there last week and then talked about it on the show and everything. Good stuff coming up, and Low got some great things coming up. Y'all make sure y'all support my brother Big Low Country Sports. I know y'all always do. Anyway, T. Terry says, Uncle Steve, did you see Vic at OTAs? He wasn't there last week. That was last week. It's not open to the public this week. That was a special one that they did last week that we were able to go up there. So he wasn't at that one. Ray is in the house. What's going on, Ray? How you doing, brother? Hit the buttons for me. I appreciate y'all. Hit the like button. Raymond Collins in the house. What's up? Hey, a little too late for me. Just ready to see that swag get going this year. That makes two of us, my brother. I appreciate it. Titus says that lull is the period when Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark supporters fight each other online. It's comical to me, brother. I'm trying to tell you, that's a whole nother thing. Oh my goodness, I got Dixon. I just saw. I keep seeing Arizona up 1-0. I don't know what's going on with the Braves offense. My brother, the Dixon way. As I get ready to get out of here in a couple of minutes, y'all make sure everybody roll over to the Dixon way. Larry is always doing, I see the end of 8, still 1-0. One hit. Is that what I see on there? Always get the best local streaming here from the content creators. Y'all make sure y'all check him out. Always, always, always. Christy said the last 2 off seasons have been exciting to me thanks to the content creator. Thank you, Christy. We appreciate that. We always try to do some good stuff during the off season. That Christy said, y'all check out the Atlanta Bird Game show from last night. He had a lot of references about this Julio convo. Yeah, I haven't even had an opportunity to jump on. I got to jump on with my buddy Tidy and do some stuff. I've been doing it at the draft, but I'm gonna try to catch up with him, and I might have to try to see if I can knock on the door and see if they'll let an old man in. I know y'all know Tidy is very prejudiced towards people over 55, so I have to see if I can get an opportunity to go in there. So y'all can tell Tidy if he could stop being age discriminatory against me, I'll gladly. He let John Harris in his show, who is about Methuselah. So see, I knew I was gonna get him. Tell my brother Devontae I got love for Devontae going off on people, man. Devontae going off on folks, man. Lance, what's up, man? Tell him it's all good. See, you know what? That's the pod I want to hear. Now to see if Devontae doesn't forget Devonta, Tevin Coleman, and what was the other little kid who blocked for them? Was that DeMarco? Get them on a pod and talk about that Super Bowl year. Since the wide receivers getting together, I bet you y'all remember, man. Listen, Tidy put up a really good post about William Andrews and Lynn Kane doing their thing back in the 80s. But I'm trying to tell you, the second most prolific duo for the Atlanta Falcons at one time, what Devonta Freeman and Tevin Coleman did that Super Bowl season was absolutely ridiculous. I go back and start watching some of the games on there, man, and to see what those guys did for us. I have a sneaky suspicion this year, Bijan and Tyler will have an opportunity to cement themselves as that next duo. When you start and if I can go back just a little bit, talking about Michael Penix, if y'all think about this, I don't want anybody to get upset if Michael Penix doesn't go for 3,000 plus yards. We might end up taking the same mantra as Jalen Hurts. When you have runners on your team like Bijan and like Tyler Algier, you might let them do most of the dirty work for you. And I don't need this to be an air raid. I just need us to win. Slow the game down a little bit. eat up some of the clock, and then let the boys run, and then when Michael have to put it up, put it up. I am so looking forward to what this offense is gonna do coming off the things we did in 2024. I think we're gonna have a special year as far as that's concerned. And if we can get again, I got an opportunity to talk briefly with Caden Ellis at the camp last week, and I asked him to a man. I said, "How's the linebacker core doing?" And he said, "I think this is going to be a great squad." He said, "These guys are fast." He said, "And you're going to see us play a lot faster this year." So that's coming from somebody that's fast. If you hear him saying that, that just my as soon as he said that, just like goosebumps start coming up to say, okay, that's something we haven't seen. And think about it. We were like Troy Anderson's fast. I'm thinking like these guys you add, I would be lying if I say I watched Devon Diablo and what he did, so I don't know how fast he is. But I watched Jalen Walker the other day. That cat is fast. I watched Watts back there running with the first team at a couple of practices, and again, not putting too much stake in t-shirts and shorts, but he looked fast. I mean, these guys are. It is going to be fun to see what happens in 2025. I am super excited. But listen, I told you we were going to talk about this stuff with Julio. We'll get back to the 2025 Falcons next time we come on. I promise y'all. What's up, Matt Town? I see you in there, brother. Don't forget, as y'all leave, please hit the like button for me here on Uncle Steve's Lounge. Go back and check out some old tapes and stuff like that. If you get an opportunity to check out some of the old streams, I will be on a lot more this year. Got a little bit more flexibility with my time. Hopefully, we'll get a chance to dive into some current Falcon stuff. As we were talking about, it's about to be a lull here. So we'll try to come in with some stuff. We're still going to have the Sunday chill. Been trying to get back to the Monday minutia a little bit more. Hopefully we can get that started more, but we'll have the Sunday chill coming up this week as well, where we kind of dive into sports and entertainment and things of that nature. So until then, everyone, I appreciate you joining me again. If you haven't subscribed, subscribe to Uncle Steve's Lounge. Thank you all for joining me. Everybody have a beautiful night, and we will catch up with you all later. Take care.
You're in Uncle Steve's Lounge.